Well, thank you so much. Good to be with you at Twin Cities again. And it's been a little while since I've spoken here, but it's always good to be part of your group and to be able to see you and who basically they helped us enjoy Costa Rica even more. Okay, they really did. And so we're going to look at some of the evidences of design for Costa Rica. And in fact, the whole idea of doing this program came from them. They said, why don't you put together a program on the design evidence of creation for the Twin Cities group? And I thought, okay. And then I realized what I just got myself into, but that's okay. But I'm going to be passing around these sheets right here. And this is I'll put over here. If you don't receive our publication, Think and Believe, that's the official publication, comes out once every 2 months from our organization. Print your name on that. There should be a pen in the clip part of that. So go ahead and print your name and address, and we'll be glad to send that to you. And it's good to see some, I'm going to say friendly, I hate to say old faces, because I know my face got a little older, but at least friends that I've known from the past. It's good to see you guys again. Anyhow, evidences for creation, Costa Rica. In order to even understand this whole thing, we have to be able to put it into a biblical framework. It's not just design that you have to see, that have to be explained when you're in Costa Rica. But you have, yes, creation and design, and you see some gorgeous things, don't you? But you also have a fall, according to the Bible, and that's going to explain why things aren't just perfect, right? The fall, and the thorns and the thistles and came in. But you also see evidence for the flood and also for the dispersion of the people after the Tower of Babel. So we see all of that. As you know, Genesis chapter 1, 10 different times states that God created things after their own kind, not one kind changing into another kind. Okay? And that's what we see, distinct kinds, both in the living and in also the fossil record. We see things were created after their own kind. And that kind of says no to evolution when you see that, right? And so we're not going to cover that too much, but the thing too is when God created it, He created it to be inhabited, didn't He? To be inhabited. And my goodness, when you go to Costa Rica, you see what inhabited looks like with the all the gorgeous animals, plants, the species of insects, the butterflies, all that stuff. You see tremendous evidence of design there and in the birds as well. First of all, something about Costa Rica. You know, Costa Rica is only 25%, 1/4 the size of Minnesota. Pretty small, isn't it? And yet, when you tour there, you feel like you're going forever, don't you? Different places and seeing so much. And yet, it is a fairly small, very small country, isn't it? It has only 1/10 of 1% of the Earth's landmass, but it also boasts 5% of the world's biodiversity. What does that mean? That means there's a lot of things to go see as far as living element of Costa Rica. So you say, why this great diversity? What are we looking at? Well, first of all, it's a unique location, number one, and we'll see why. There's a varied topography and a lot of geologic processes happening. And that all results in different things, including climatic zones that are different ecosystems, and a multitude of what you might call special niches, where you might have a specific type of a creature. Where's it located? Well, tip of that arrow. That little country right there, that's Costa Rica. And being there, notice one thing, that's a pretty narrow land, between the Pacific Ocean and the Atlantic Ocean, right? It's a very small little strip of land there. And so you have beaches for you beach lovers on both sides of the country, don't you? And yeah, but also it's a very diverse country. You also have uplifted type of mountains and volcanic mountains as well. And in fact, the plates that collide, you might say, in that particular area causes some of the uplift, but also a lot of the volcanic activity in Costa Rica. And yes, you see some volcanoes that are fairly recent or even still today, even going off. Arenal, we've got Poas Volcano. In one of our tours 2 years ago, we didn't get to see that this last year. But 2 years ago, we saw Poas and was from the observation center. And yeah, then after that, they started noticing there's a little bit of rumbling going on. And they usually have warning if there's magma coming up. And sure enough, magma was coming up in the observation deck that we used to observe Poas from was blown off. But at least you have some warning and you know not to go in there. So last year we actually went to Irazu Volcano. It's a gorgeous place and beautiful lagoon down there. And but you also notice the layering. Darwin looked at the layering coming up the coast of South America and says it must have taken millions of years to make those layers. What did we see? We saw that layers can happen, how fast? A couple of days. That's all it really took. But all of this volcanic material brought new soil up. And when you actually look at volcanic type of material, it makes a wonderful, rich soil. And you see lush vegetation. Not only lush vegetation because of the richness of the soil, but also because of the climate. And plenty of rain that you get there too, but just a gorgeous place for flowers to see. And then design features, and we're going to look at that as well. One of the design features you already know, monarch butterflies. You know probably that they go all the way from Canada to Mexico. And that's a big migration for a little butterfly, right? 2,500 miles they've been noted to go. They also go from Canada all the way into Spain as well. That's a long, long ways. People have told me you can't tell design. There's no way to tell. And I say, yes, you can tell design, okay? And but yeah, you see design all over. And I think Romans chapter 1 in the Bible tells us about that. It says basically you can see design. You can even see something about that designer, right? And it goes a little bit further, and basically if you don't make out who this God is, etc., and you dismiss exactly who he is, he says, professing to be wise, they became fools. Man, I don't want to be called a fool by God, okay? I don't want to. But yes, I can see design. I don't think anyone in this room would say that that painting came as a result of an explosion in a paint factory. Would you? No, you can see design even though you did not see the designer. Let me pause just briefly right here. I realize that there are people way over here. These slides over here on that are not coming in very clearly. This one is. So if you want to, feel free to take some of these center seats and you'll see vivid pictures, okay, instead of washed out things. So anyhow, do you know there are over 12,000 species of vascular plants there? 1,400 species of orchids alone. What a place to take pictures, right? All the beautiful flowers. Interesting thing about it is when an orchid, the seeds of the orchid does not have enough nutrients in it for it to sprout. All right? It doesn't. So what happens is there's a fungus that's related, a different fungus for each species of orchid. And what happens is The plant and the seeds get their original nutrients, you might say, because of the fungus. Okay? So it's a symbiotic relationship between the fungus and the orchid. Pretty neat evidence of design. There are more than 9,000 species of butterflies and moths. Now, it's interesting that almost 20% of the world's species of butterflies are found in Costa Rica. That's a lot, isn't it? A lot of them. And in fact, if South America, you've got close to 90% of all of the Central American butterflies are found in Costa Rica. All right? And so that's amazing. My favorite one of those butterflies just happens to be the blue morpho. Isn't that a beautiful, vivid color? But did you realize a blue morpho is not blue? No, what do you mean? It looks blue to me. No, it's not blue. It's not blue at all. This is you see the underside of the butterfly as well, but the top is actually clear chitinous material is what it is. And basically, it's a colorless protein. It's chitin. You say, what? How did you get that brilliant color? Well, every one of the scales, and though, yeah, these look blue, okay? But the reason they look blue is because of the laminae that's on it. These are like Christmas tree pattern. The branches are the laminae. Here's what they call constructive interference here. And we wrote an article on that, or actually Bill Browning wrote an article for us for Think and Believe several years ago. And basically these laminae, they're on each of these tiny, tiny, tiny little scales. And then each scale has all kinds of these little laminae. And it's the spacing of the laminae must be perfectly controlled, exact spacing. For the reason is because it has to be there within a fraction of the wavelength of light. There are about 1.4 million layers of these laminae on the wing of the butterfly. And so what happens, they have to be arranged in critical accuracy, okay? Now what happens, the light comes in there, and it's basically enhanced, that's constructive interference. It is enhanced, so it's even brighter than when it was coming in, and only a specific hue of the blue is coming out. And so it's different than other type of butterflies or a bird that might have red wings or something like that, because there the pigment does it. This is amazing, you might say, engineering system right here in the morpho butterfly. Now, when I first heard Bill Browning talk about the morpho butterfly years ago, I had not been to Costa Rica. I never had seen one of these things, but I knew that they were in Costa Rica, and I wanted to see one so badly. So my wife, Mary Jo, back there, wave at us, will you? There's Mary Jo. She began to pray, "Oh Lord, let Dave see a blue morpho butterfly up close." Okay, so I got to see one up close, didn't I? And even closer. Yeah, these are remarkable. I love those butterflies. And it is such a design, I think it'd be really hard-pressed to explain how you got all of those laminae meticulously placed without a designer. And yeah, you might come up with a naturalistic explanation, but really, to me, yes, it looks designed. Yes, it does. And I really believe that when you see certain engineering principles, that would indicate design. It would indicate that it wasn't just, you might say, accidents, mutations, and then natural selection working with that. Okay? There are 250 species of mammals. About half of them are bats, by the way. And one of my favorite is the sloth. Okay? Is a sloth, and he likes to spend his time hanging from branches or curled up. And you're right, guys, the sloth speaks so slowly. In fact, even when they're moving quickly, it's hard to see much motion at all. Okay, and but look at that. How do they hang on to those tree limbs, huh? Well, look at those claws. Those are interesting claws. Do you realize a sloth can actually hang on to the bottom of a tree limb or onto the tree limb? Go to sleep. Those locks have a special, or those claws happen to, I say locks? They are locks. They actually clamp and they are locked into position. Okay? And that's what keeps them from falling out of that tree. Now, we're always told big claws means eating flesh and ripping flesh, right? No, not with this guy, all right? So claws don't necessarily mean that when you see that. There are about 900 species of birds. Interesting are some of my favorite are these Scarlet Macaws. And just the beauty alone would be a good evidence of design as far as I'm concerned, okay? Of course, Darwin thought it was a mating advantage to have beautiful colors. It turns out that both the male and the female have the same color, though. Did you know that? They both have the same color. So what's going on here? They also live 65 to 80 years. And you say, they live that long? Were they eating and all that? Wouldn't they get parasites that would kill them sooner? Well, yeah, they do get parasites. Even though they live in the trees a lot, they're also crush different things, but basically they will actually eat the sap of a poisonous cedar. It's poisonous, but they eat that, and that kills the parasites. Isn't that great? Yeah, and do you realize they also mate for life? This doesn't work for evolution, because if one of the pair dies, the other one does not seek another mate. They stay solitary. And you think, how could that help evolution? Evolution is all about spreading your genes, right? And getting more and more and more little macaws, okay? But no, that's not what's going on here. So that one thing speaks a little bit against the evolutionary idea. Well, not only do they eat parasites, but they also eat fruit that's pretty green. And that would also make them quite sick, okay? So how do they take care of that type of sickness? Well, you'll see them frequently along the banks of a river, say, and they will eat a lot of clay, mud, you might say, but it's a clay. And it's the clay that'll actually help them digest all of that green food and take care of that poisonous substance and toxicity. All right, so all of this stuff. And so the one thing you might ask is Darwin right? When you look at the beautiful quetzals, okay, when you actually look at that, this is an amazing bird, isn't it? And it is the prize of somebody to go there and get a picture of the quetzal. This is one of the few pictures in this program that I didn't take, okay? But it's amazing, beauty. So mating advantage, right? That's what Darwin would have said. The more beautiful mates would attract, the beautiful colors would attract the mate. The beautiful bills of the toucans would attract the mate. And you say, does that really work? Well, that's been you might say the proof of evolution for all these years, or substantiation, but actually they did some research. Beautiful peacocks, all right? There was a study done on 280 observations on peacocks. Thing they noticed, the splendid males did not win the attention of the females. Back to the drawing board on this one, right? It's whoa, my goodness. That's right out of New Scientist, okay? Not necessarily the mating advantage. Darwin knew of toucans too. And this one is an arcari, but they also have toucans and things like that. The bill of a toucan is about 30 to 50% of the size of the whole bird. That's a pretty good size schnozola, isn't it? It really is. Darwin, oh, it's a mating advantage. The birds with the very bright bills are the ones that attract the males. End of story, right? No. They decided to do some research on that, and here's what it said in National Geographic News. The brilliantly colored bills of toucans aren't just eye candy. Rather, they play an essential role in helping the birds control their temperature. It is a very well engineered, and I'm going to say designed, thermal system, okay? It is. That's what it is right there. Anyhow, how about hummingbirds? Interesting thing about hummingbirds, they're really fun to watch, and we could see a lot of them in Costa Rica, all different varieties. They flap their wings about 50 to 200 times per second. And how many ever heard, oh, I eat like a bird? If you hear that sometimes, say, a hummingbird? Why? Because a hummingbird sips at least 1.5 and up to 2 times its body weight per day of nectar. That's a lot of intake, isn't it? Oh, okay. Well, think about this too, with all of it. Here's what it says. Scott Gillis, who's basically with the wrote in the Creation magazine, how do you get all that nectar down? If you just kind of do it by capillary action, you're not going to get as much as you might need. It says the tongue works more like a micro pump. Does that sound like possibly an engineer system when you call it a micro pump? I think so. Composed of 2 long, narrow tubes that unzip in segmented flaps when in contact with the nectar. Then the flaps retract to pump the nectar in less than 1/20th of a second in rapid succession, thousands of times each day. Boy, this is a very efficient pump, isn't it? All right, other pumps with that kind of activity would break down pretty quickly. But think about all of that. Think about as much food that they're eating, but also think about the flapping of the wings. That's a lot of frictional and metabolic heat, isn't it? How does it cool itself? Well, the flapping of the wings provide exterior cooling. So far, so good? All right, exterior cooling, that's for sure. All right, and so the airflow cools the outside. The heartbeat is 500 to 1,200 times per minute. That's a pretty good heart rate, isn't it? Respiration, 250 times per minute, and then all that helps cool the inside, right? And so when you look in the fossil records, guess what you find about hummingbirds? It's rather intriguing. Hummingbirds have always been hummingbirds. I like this particular quote here when they found this new fossil. The amazing thing about this fossil is that it is essentially a modern hummingbird. My mind is a little blown. And then the second quote there, where the whole hovering tribe of hummingbirds came from remains up in the air. I love their tongue-in-cheek, I'm sure. All right. And by the way, they also have bats there too, which are also very intricate flyers besides the hummingbirds, right? But when you look at the fossil record, guess what you find? And keep in mind, bats make up 50% of the mammalian population in Costa Rica. But they're very important for insect control, aren't they? 1,000 bats, fossil bats have been found. There's not one intermediate whatsoever. Okay? There are no known intermediate stages between bats and what it supposedly evolved from, the insectivores, okay? And so bats have always been bats, in other words. And you say with these intricate flying, etc., they shouldn't have very many natural enemies, should they? How do you catch a bat, by the way? Well, they do have an enemy. They have 2 possible things that kind of get them. And this, one of them is the golden orb web spider, okay? And they make spider webs that'll actually trap a hummingbird at times. But they don't necessarily eat the hummingbird, but they become trapped in the web. But also in that picture, you see one other thing in the background. You see that little yellow stuff? Well, this is on the other side of the island from where you guys were, okay? We didn't go over to that side or not the island, of the country. We didn't go over there because of certain reasons there in Costa Rica. But that yellow thing is a viper. Okay, that little guy right there, stretched out, is about 4 feet long. And their favorite food, hummingbirds and bats. Okay, favorite food. This interesting thing about this viper, it shows tremendous evidence of design. Now, I didn't want to catch one to show you guys up close, right? I didn't do that. But really, they actually can take their fangs and fold them up against the roof of their mouth. So that's very unique. It has infrared imaging capability. Kind of works like binocular vision. It's on either side of the head right here, next to the eyes, and they can actually detect 1/500ths of a degree, 2/1000ths of a degree. Is that pretty sensitive to heat? You better believe it. They can detect the differences in heat, and frequently I've heard it said that this infrared perception actually works better than eyes would work, okay, for being able to see what they're going after. All right, now think about the spider there. There's the golden orb spider, and what they're looking at is that particular silk. And from that silk, what they're looking at is making a waterproof and also a bulletproof vest. Why? Because this is tough stuff. So they've actually, in a museum, you can, not necessarily in Costa Rica, but you can find the spider silk cape from this particular spider, okay? And these are not harmful to people, okay? So don't worry about that spider, but about the silk. It is 5 times stronger than steel and twice as elastic as nylon. Okay, yes, it remains completely waterproof. And you say, how could it be that strong? It's because that one spider web silk is not just one. It is actually woven together. Multiple strands, and depending on what the application of it is, they will maybe try to do a single strand, or maybe even 5 or 6 or 7 strands, all woven together into what you think would be one strand. You know, it's amazing. I'm going to use some observational logic. Observation, that looks like a weaving factory. Here's my conclusion. Weaving factories don't happen by accident, do they? This looked like a pretty well-designed system right here. Now, we see whales and dolphins are over 25 species, sea turtles, 5 species, and I don't know if you got to see the turtle. Okay, oh, did you? Okay, you got to see the turtle, the sea turtle there, good, when we were snorkeling on the tour. Okay, interesting thing about the dolphins, I managed to catch this. Isn't that amazing? I didn't realize it until later that I actually got it. But there it is, the dolphin. Amazing system. You have to understand that dolphins are water mammals. They need to keep warm, don't they? So how are they going to keep warm? Well, they swim into cold water frequently, but they're also in warm water. So what do? In order to compensate for the cold water, they put on a thick layer of blubber. Okay? Yeah, and that is a great insulator except for one thing. It can't take its blubber layer off. So what's it going to do? When it wants to go into warmer water off the coast of Costa Rica, or if it wants to swim hard, it's going to have too much heat built up inside. So it turns out that the dolphins has a radiator-like system. And And basically that helps cool the blood to the right temperature. And when it gets to the perfect temperature, it goes back into the rest of the system, cools down the entire body. It's an amazing system. There is a magazine that is committed to evolutionary naturalism. What naturalism is a worldview. What it is teaching is that you can explain everything in the physical world, from the universe to life, by strictly naturalistic processes and nothing else. Are you with me? Only natural processes. And here's what the magazine said. Listen carefully. Remember, they're committed to know God, and they're trying to be scientific. It says, by all rights, life in the sea should leave a dolphin baked, crushed, and sterile. This graceful mammal avoids such a fate only by slipping through the loopholes in the laws of physiology. Now, let me ask you this. Did they say anything? No, they put some scientific jargon and almost like a smokescreen here. It really doesn't say anything at all. But it's good enough for them. Okay? But when you actually look at that, that's why I say frequently in my programs that evolution is not science. It is a philosophy of how we got here on Earth. Okay? Evolution is philosophy or a belief system. It is not science. When you look at a dolphin, it can actually dive just about 1,800 feet deep. And there are special type of things that actually happen in the body to allow that to happen and to surface quickly as well. A diver tries to do it, then he has to go to the hospital if he survives, okay? You know, a dolphin can basically detect the difference between a dime and a quarter underneath the sand. That's how good its ectonical signature is, okay? It can do that. And there are other things about the dolphin that just make them tremendously designed, engineered complexes, okay? So, all right, let me ask you a question. How would you like to have a crocodile over for dinner? Huh? Well, that I will have to say one thing, guys. It's better than being the crocodile's dinner. Okay? We did get to see crocodiles. I say we see quite a few of those things. Interesting thing about crocodiles is you don't really have to worry about the crocodile eating you too much. Because if they eat once every 6 months, they're usually fairly satisfied. Okay? And their favorite food happens to be fish. But when they're eating the fish, guess what they find? They find out that they get a lot of salt in that fish, don't they? But it also is a freshwater creature, goes into the salt water. What to do with all those salt? It has special glands that actually will concentrate and they can eliminate that salt. I think it's amazing what they have there. One of my favorite reptiles there is the Jesus Christ lizard, because it will actually run on water. It takes about 20 steps per second, and special design allows them to do that. And of course, the younger ones that aren't quite as heavy do a whole lot better walking on water than the older ones do, okay? So crocodiles, don't worry about it. We go to a crocodile viewing spot, and we wondered, why are those crocodiles there in such great numbers? Usually you don't see them congregated that much. And we figure that once in a while they throw a tourist over or something. But no, who knows? And the whole idea of eliminating salt is rather interesting physiology to do that, but it's not the only one that eliminates salt. You go to the mangrove, which Mary Jo loves visiting the mangroves. They actually concentrate salt too in the leaves, and they regularly drop those leaves to get rid of the extra salt, because they live in what's called brackish water. Sometimes, depending on the height of the tide, it's salty. And then when its tide goes out, it's all fresh water. Okay? So they have to be able to handle both of them. And yeah, Mary Jo loves taking a boat up those channels and to be able to see those things and see the wildlife and see the birds, etc. By the way, these birds and this bird here also eliminate salt a similar way, okay? They have to take care of that salt. This is a bird. We saw several of these. These are greenback herons. This one goes fishing. Did you know that? I don't think Aaron pointed that out to you, but he actually goes fishing. And what it'll do is take a pebble or other thing and drops it in the water. Then he sits and waits, like a good fisherman, right? And he waits, and he sees a minnow getting attracted to that pebble dropping down through the water. Boom, he's got his meal, okay? And that's a fish that goes fishing, or a bird that goes fishing, I should say. And it too eliminates salt too. Another bird, we call it the bee, it's the bee eater, and it'll actually grab a hold of a bee, and why doesn't it get stung? Well, here is instructions for a bee-eating bird. Once you have caught a bee, wrap its head against a branch until it stops moving. Next, rub the bee's tail against a branch to remove the stinger and venom in sac. Swallow whole or feed the chicks. How did this little guy know how to do it? So you could do a bee, you could do a wasp. It says you can substitute those things, right? Whatever you want. Amazing. We look at some of the foliage around there. It's beautiful green, but you see, wait a minute, what are all those holes in the leaf right there? What's going on here? Well, because there are ants that like to cut the leaves. In fact, they cut the leaves off, they transport them right into their own hole. And what happens when they're in the hole, they've got a nice humidity chamber and everything. It causes fungus to grow. And this is what the fungus is going to grow on. And so you might say, this is a farming ant. What's he farming? Well, the fungus produces a nice little sweet substance, and they love the sweet substance, right? You know that. Ants up here. You leave the jelly out on your counter, and you're asking for trouble with some ants coming in, aren't you? Okay, so this one eats fungus. You know, ants have an enemy, though. The anteater, okay? This anteater will eat up to 25,000 ants per day. Whew, that's amazing. That's a lot of ants, isn't it? And so what do they do? Well, some of the species of ants actually live in the thorny trees, okay? In the thorny trees. And we think thorns and thistle, oh, that's bad. Well, God might have meant it for good too, because the ants can go up there and they will be protected from the anteater because the anteater won't climb the tree. Pretty unique, isn't it? All right. But they also do the pollination of the tree as well, all right? We also see termites that actually, you see that little stripe there? That is a termite tunnel. It's basically made out of mud, goes all the way to the top, and when you get all the way up, you find out the termites had mounds. And it's interesting because that's where the termites normally live. Now, they like it perfect temperature. Did you know that? So they actually will make their termite mound with certain ways of doing it, and the tunnel's working so that it takes care of cooling really nicely. Okay? Cooling and heating as well if they need heat. Okay? Perfect. There's actually a 30,000 square foot office building that was actually designed after the termite mounds in Africa. Okay? Big termite mounds in Africa. And they did all of their heating and the cooling via termite technology. I think if we have to look at the technology of termites, we're going to have to say, I'll bet you somebody more powerful than just chance and accidents produced the knowledge for the termite to be able to do that. So you see these mounds way, way up in the air. That's good protection for the termites. The anteaters don't get to them either. Hey, what is this? If you say, how many are broccoli eaters? Raise your hand high. You like broccoli? All right, raise your hand high. Okay, no, it's not broccoli. Do you know what it is? How about the foot of a gecko lizard? I'll take questions a little later too if you have a question, okay? It's actually the foot of a gecko lizard, and if you use the scanning electron microscope, they find out that the reason a gecko lizard, which happens to be in Costa Rica, Mexico, etc., we don't have them up here, they can run across a plate glass ceiling and not fall off. And in fact, if you tried to do a pull-up on that guy, a 300-pound guy even, could do a pull-up on this thing, and the lizard will not let go. Of course, the lizard's not going to look like much afterwards, but doesn't let go. It's because of these fine fibers make a molecular bond with the substance that it is touching, like the plate glass. A molecular bond. And that's why it's so strong. But it's also a directional bond. And so you see when a lizard walks or runs, it's got a real interesting jerky gait. It is releasing those bonds with every step. Okay? A unique design system. Now, can we even come close to making something like that? And the answer is yes. Now, after millions and millions of dollars worth of research, they're now making a new adhesive that they're hoping to take and make Sticky Man, Spider-Man gloves. Okay? That's what they're hoping to do. You'd love a pair of those, wouldn't you? They're self-cleaning, retractable, dry adhesive, and like the gecko lizard, have close to 300 million fibers per square inch. And that's about that big right there, okay? That's pretty unique. And so we're, again, copying God's design. There are 175 species of amphibians. Most of those are frogs, and they are gorgeous frogs, aren't they? And when you look at the different type of frogs, we got to see, well, virtually all of these, I guess. And but they're pretty. They're really neat. But may I suggest, don't kiss them. All right? Now, these aren't as poison as some of the poison dart frogs that you might find, say, in Colombia. Colombia has a frog there that if you take a paper clip, 1,000th of a paper clip in size, okay? That's all you need. And that's enough to kill 15 people. That toxin, that poison there. And it is amazing. And how do they ever figure out how to do that kind of thing, huh? And you say, poison dart frogs. Why don't they poison themselves? Okay? Well, it's actually the reason they don't poison themselves is that is because of the physiology here. Now, you look at a what's called the sodium gate that controls muscle contraction and especially release, extension. Basically, what you have here is there's one particular protein that's made up of the whole string of amino acids. It's got to be just perfect, right? And if you don't have all these proteins there, this thing doesn't work very well at all. And so it's not going to work with releasing your muscles. The string of amino acids on this one is 1,800 plus amino acids making up the protein for the sodium gate thing. All right, now, why doesn't a poison dart frog have the problem? The poison actually works on the protein here, and what it does is make it so that the muscle will no longer relax. So if it can't relax, if you happen to get some of that poison in you, it'll freeze up the muscles, you might say, and it'll shut down your heart, etc. That's one of the ways. But the thing is, the poison dart, remember I said there's 1,800? One of those particular amino acids is different in the poison dart frog. Number 1,546, I think, okay, in the string. Only one was different. And that made it so that the poison, the toxin, does not affect the system. One. How many poison dart frogs had to die before they figured this out? It's almost like they had somebody who was a master engineer and designer put everything together, right? But how did this happen? According to naturalism, and they basically say it this way: we can imagine. Keep in mind the word imagine is not really a scientific term, although that's a start of doing some scientific investigation. But they say we can imagine how mutations coupled with natural selection might refine or produce these features. Might isn't a scientific word either. It's just a guess, right? A shot in the dark. Okay, now mutation, natural selection. This is the primary axiom of natural selection. Well, if you read the book called Genetic Entropy by Dr. John Sanford, he talks about evolution proceeds by mutation, natural selection as a primary axiom, but he says the primary axiom, this whole idea, is absolutely wrong. Who is this guy? What does he know? Well, he's one of the top genetic experts in the world. All right? He is. He is the co-inventor of the gene gun with the method of sequencing, etc. And basically has 25 genetic patents under his belt. He's formerly a professor at Cornell University, but he was an atheist. And then his research showed him that there was problems with mutation and natural selection. And the more he researched it, he said not only is it wrong, this whole idea of natural selection and mutation is not just implausible, it is not just unlikely, it is absolutely dead wrong, he says, from all of his research. He said it's not just a false axiom, it is an unsupported and a discredited hypothesis which can be confidently rejected. Wow. That's pretty strong words, isn't it? But that was his research. His research drove him out of being an atheism and into creation, by the way. Dr. John Sanford, okay? And so he was a top-notch researcher, but no longer a scientist, right? Wrong. He is a really top-notch scientist. That's why I said evolution is not science, okay? It isn't. It's a philosophy posing as science. And it is a pillar of the naturalistic worldview. So when we look at Genesis 1 through 11, we're understanding creation as design, right? And we see the viper, that really falls for the fall. And what about all those thorny bush trees, right? That's also, you see that there too. Why such evil? Why things killing each other? You have to have more than just design in your model. And that's where the biblical model comes in, the creation. Then there's also the fall, which so many things that were meant for good all of a sudden probably started being used for evil. We see evidence of the flood, destruction, and Babel as well. Think about creation, the original creation. I can't think of a better place to visualize maybe what the original Garden of Eden might have looked like than Costa Rica, with all that green, all the beautiful vegetation, all the 1,400 species of orchids, and all the other flowers as well. I can't imagine anything better than that, and all the beautiful flowers and butterflies and birds. Yeah, Garden of Eden. Well, I can't say that. I think that was even better at that point. But we do see the fall, don't we? We do see the fall, the thorns and the thistles, and okay, vipers remind us of the original deception in the Garden of Eden, doesn't it? In the flood, there's a layer in the one of the beaches we go to where you can actually see all of those beautiful fossils. But what does that mean? Those were put down by some kind of a water activity and not just tidal action. This is the evidence of a flood right there in Costa Rica too. Beautiful. And this is just an amazing assemblage. And some of these shells are about 3 inches up to 4 inches long and just packed in that area. And fossil hunters loved it. Okay, they really did. And so we see evidence for that. But as you see all of this beauty in Costa Rica, I want you to keep in mind, this is a destroyed world that we're looking at. Right? We're seeing evidence of the flood here. This is destroyed. It was a beautiful spot. Now we see a land, a country, etc., everything. Evidence of the fall, right? God sent the flood, destroyed everything at first except for what was on the ark, and then things started over. So what does that tell me? When I see such beauty, it makes me remember God makes beauty out of destruction. Can He do that in our hearts and our lives? I don't care how much somebody is messed up. I don't care how bad. All right? God can make beauty out of a ruined life, can't He? And I see that when I see such beauty in His created world. And I think that makes us want to worship and praise that God who has changed our hearts and our lives and has allowed us to come into fellowship with Him. Well, in Costa Rica, we also see beautiful evidence of the promise that God's not going to send that flood again, right? All right. And we see evidence of the dispersion of people there, right? Dispersion of people. And these were not dumb people. The ancient people of Costa Rica were extremely smart. They can make things out of solid volcanic material, solid rock, and say, how did they do that? One of the big problems they've had was trying to explain these giant spheres, the giant spheres in Costa Rica. And when I looked at that, I said, oh my, those are amazing. How did they get them perfectly round? And some of them are even bigger, okay? Some of them are close to 8 feet tall, right, Alan? I think that's yours. You can reach that tall. Yeah. But, I know how they got there. In fact, there was a lady that was really big into the New Age stuff, and we met her. She says it was aliens that did it because they didn't have the technology to do that. And we need steel hammers, we need all this kind of stuff. But it was interesting. I was with another person, Mary Jo and I were looking through Costa Rica, and we were talking about the stone spheres because we knew we were going to be seeing some. And a guy overheard our conversation, could speak English. And so he said, oh, would you like to see some of those stone spheres? My uncle makes them. Okay. And so we actually drove up and we found the uncle, and there he was making these things with a hammer and a little bit of a string, and he was making a real perfect sphere. And he said, yeah, I've sold some of these to the museum. That's what he told us. And, but the ancient peoples made them. You find them throughout different parts of Costa Rica and as well that part of Central America. And what were they for? Well, some suggested that maybe what these guys were for, to mark the bigger the sphere you had, the more important the village chieftain was. Okay? Possibly. Or maybe in a jungle environment where you have termites eating anything wood, you can't put up a wood sign. So how about these big rocks and make them as markers for the trails? And in fact, there's evidence that some of them were actually whitewashed, okay? And that because they stand out nicely in a jungle, okay? And so maybe that's what they're for. But like I said, the people weren't dumb. They were extremely brilliant. Remember the ancestors of Noah? They were into metallurgy and making of musical instruments, etc. Remember? The pre-flood people were extremely brilliant, you might say. Well, here what they're using, this is actually a museum exhibit. They're showing how they made some of their beautiful jewelry using what's called the lost wax method of casting. Well, guess what? This is exactly the same method that we used, although we used just a little bit different, but we used it to cast jewelry and ring sets when I helped my dad out in a rock shop and basically a custom jewelry shop. And we used the same basic method. These guys weren't dumb. They were actually they're making that into a forge to get very high temperature to be able to burn out the mold and then suck the gold or the gold and copper alloy into it. Yeah, they're brilliant. And if there's a Bruce Malone, you all know them, right? And this one book called Brilliant, Made in the Image of God. I like that book. All right, I really like that book. You know, Costa Rica is really a photographer's place. There's Oscar. He's our Costa Rican coordinator for the whole tour, and he loves photography, just loves it now. And so it's a great spot to take photos. If you like taking pictures of flowers, Costa Rica is the place, okay? What a gorgeous spot for that. And not only the flowers, but even in the crabs. Okay. Look at those crabs. Isn't that amazing crab? I mean, everything is colored so nicely. All right. That's what I like about it. I love color. All right. I do like pictures. I do like sand. All right. I love sand and the beaches. But just sand alone, I don't care for too much. But when it's mixed with palm trees and green vegetation, I really, really like it. And the vegetation there. It's absolutely amazing, okay? The intensity of the greens. Even in the caterpillars, we see immense beauty, don't we? Even though you don't want to eat one of those, but that's okay. I'm not planning to eat caterpillars anyhow. Look in the toucans, and remember those bright, brilliant plumage is not necessarily a mating advantage, is it? Neither is the bill of a toucan, a mating advantage. We see evidence of ingenuity in the country. Beautiful things to take pictures of, too. Waterfalls, and they called that one a walking tree, by the way. It doesn't really walk. The center part stays pretty much the same, but it might put on an extra root system, and the roots kind of move a little bit, but the tree doesn't walk. But design everywhere. Design in the banana plants. And when anybody familiar with the Fibonacci sequences? This is what you're seeing right here. And we've got a little booklet called The Hand of God, written by one of our staff people there at Alpha Omega Institute. But a place to be able to go, relax, and see things we never have seen. How many saw a tree like that growing in Minnesota? We love those things, looking down in the lagoons, looking at the wildlife. And we were able to see, virtually every year we were there, all 4 species of monkeys in Costa Rica. Okay, all 4 of their species. And the frogs. And did I say earlier that God made the places, especially Costa Rica, to be inhabited? And there's so much variety, so many different ecological niches. Do you realize that tree that you're looking at is an ecological niche? The tree itself has several ecological things in it. You have the bromelia growing and the orchids, and basically look in the bottom branch of that tree. That's another type of a plant, okay? And it catches water. That one catches water. And when the mother frog lays its eggs and the tadpoles hatch, there's 2 things that's going on there. These are poison dart frogs. And when the little tiny frogs finally hatch out, you know what they need? Some way to protect themselves. So the mother lays a whole bunch of other eggs that are basically laced with poison. And this allows the little frogs to have that particular poison, toxin in them right from the get-go. And so they're protected. But how does she do that? Well, she takes those tadpoles, carries them up into the tree in her mouth, and puts them in those little pools in the branch of the tree, okay, into that other plant, the bromelia. And that's water, and basically the tadpoles live, they survive, and then crawl down the tree when they're regular, now frogs. And so I think that is an amazing evidence of design right there, isn't it? The foreknowledge of that, what to do in that particular area. Yeah, butterflies all over, gorgeous place to be. Why so much diversity and beauty? Not just the location and the geology and the volcanoes, etc. I believe it's because God is an artist. He loves beauty. Like any good artist, right? Loves beauty. And we see it all over, whether it be in the butterflies or the birds, like the macaws. And by the way, these macaws get up to about 30, almost 36 inches in height. That's how big those macaws are. You know why I like macaws so much, besides their beauty? I can see them. I can see them. Okay? And so again, we have beauty in the sunset. I think also God is an artist, and He loves to paint His skies. Remember that picture you guys took? I tried to get a good picture of them in there. She snaps one, gets a beautiful picture. Or anyhow, using your camera, I guess. Was that just the phone that we used? I think so. Here, I'm trying like crazy. But what a beautiful spot. God is an artist. He paints the sky, and I think He just loved painting the skies in Costa Rica. I think He did. Now, I know the light filtering through, and there's scientific explanations, but I just think God basically set all this up. And God loved painting His creatures in Costa Rica too. So next March 23 through April 1, it's our next tour of Costa Rica that we will be doing. And I just want to invite you to come along. We have brochures that we want to make sure you get. Did you all get one? Inside that packet of Discover Creation, there should be a camp brochure that mentions Costa Rica and also mentions our Yellowstone tour as well. Okay? So August 30th, September 3, that's Labor Day weekend. That's another Yellowstone tour that we will be doing through Alpha Omega Institute. All right? And keep in mind, we have materials that you can purchase and or at least order from us if we don't have them. Like our DVD set, that's Alpha Omega produced, only $35. That's 12 different creation sessions covering flood, covering design, all different gambits of the creation versus evolution controversy. And that includes a 75-page full-color book as well that goes along with it. So you might enjoy that one. The brilliant one, Bruce Malone, you'll have to order that. Better yet, buy it from Bruce right here, okay? Or Julie. They've got it too. Contested Bones, a fairly new one. Some of you may not have do not know. You heard the name John Sanford, but he co-authored this book with Christopher Rupi, and basically includes the latest finds on human evolution. I think that was published earlier this year. Okay, very good book. And the same author as that Genetic Entropy that I mentioned earlier. A great book for you to kind of make sure your family is equipped daily with creation. Get Bruce's and Julie's book on Have You Considered? Evidence Beyond a Reasonable Doubt. Really, yeah, we have to sell it to you. They'll give you a better price probably, okay? But I'd say make sure you get one of those, and make sure you give that out as Christmas presents to everybody on your Christmas list this year. Get something that's worth giving, okay? Creation Basics. We have that on our table right here where Mary Jo is. It's a good overall basic creation book The global flood is probably the best one that on the flood talks about the geologic and archaeologic and biblical evidence that the flood was worldwide. Written by Dr. John Morris, is Henry M. Morris's son, by the way. And I like this book. Why? Pictures. Can you tell I like pictures? Okay, this one is loaded with pictures. We have a DVD set, or excuse me, a set of 3 guidebooks as well. And this is on the Grand Canyon, Zion and Bryce, and also Yellowstone. And these are not ours. John Hergen, rather, will be doing that, or has done that with a couple other scientists as well. So make sure that you avail yourself to some of these materials. And yeah, we may have to order them for you, or unless they've got them on their table, then get them there, okay? But important books, especially dinosaurs. Young people are convinced of evolution starting sometimes 4 years old and 5 years old, okay? So make sure that you get them good materials there. One thing that since I was here last time, something new and exciting. Do you realize we've been doing all these creation programs all over the country? We've been doing a lot of them all over. A lot of universities. And finally, we got to praying about it at one of our board meetings and says, what about Colorado Mesa University? It's in Grand Junction. That's where we're at. What are we doing there besides just an occasional lecture? And so our board says we need to start working toward more campus ministry as an organization. Now keep in mind, we do have 4 speaking teams with Alpha Omega Institute. We have a couple of teachers as well that love to share and teach, and they're more home based. And so Mary Jo just happened to be driving by, this is right shortly after our board meeting, just happened to drive by, took the wrong turn or a different turn, and spotted a building a half block from Colorado Mesa University. She calls me up at 11 that day and said, Dave, how serious are we about starting a university ministry? I said, cautiously, what do you have in mind? I'm standing in front of a building and it looks really nice. I called the realtor and it seems like an awfully good price. And I said, well, make an appointment. We'll look at it later this afternoon. We just happened to have our staff prayer meeting that day. Okay, that was already scheduled at 2 o'clock. And so we prayed about it at the staff meeting. And then Mary Jo and I went to look at this building on the inside. And we found out the inside looked every bit as good as the outside. And it looked perfect for what we wanted with Alpha Omega Institute. And so basically that evening, we just happened to have our board meeting. Our board met that evening. It was already scheduled. And instead of holding us back and saying, no, you're kind of crazy here, they said, go for it. Get a contract on it. Okay? And 1 week later, we had a contract, and at the very same day, we had to sign this contract that says if we didn't have 25% of the purchase price in hand within 2 weeks, we would lose our $10,000 earnest money on it. How am I going to sign that? You know, we don't have that kind of funds at AOI. Well, that very same day we're supposed to sign this contract. When we get this, we have somebody call and says, my wife and I have been praying. We would like to contribute the whole down payment, the whole 25% down for that building. $141,000. He says, we're heading to the bank right now. That'll be in your account yet this afternoon. Oh, praise the Lord. I called the realtor and said, yeah, the contract is on the way. Just want to let you know. And but I had to fax it in. And she, I got to let you know that you'll lose your earnest money if you don't have that down payment. I said, guess what? Somebody just deposited it for that specific purpose in our account today. No. So I think it's really great. This is a ministry center that's 1/2 block away from the same college that determined that I got too creationist for them. Okay? I was a little bit too creationist for them, and they finally realized they had to get rid of me. All right? And so they didn't renew my contract, even though I had extremely good ratings from the students. They didn't. And so that does happen, by the way. Some of the people we talk to university, oh, they wouldn't do that. Oh, yeah, they do. They do regularly. And but I think they thought they got rid of me. But as the old song goes, the cat came back. All right. And I brought reinforcements now. And so praise the Lord. Stay in touch. Visit our website, okay? And if the Lord puts it on your heart, there's a donate button on our website. You can also donate to Alpha Omega Institute that way, so we can keep going to universities, we can go to churches, etc., and do the ministry there in Grand Junction at Colorado Mesa University. And so pray for us, and please, as you go through this now, we were able to discover creation and evidences of design in Costa Rica. Don't worship the design, worship the designer. Okay? Worship our Creator God. Thank you so much. God bless you guys.
We had a question over here, was it?
I was just wondering, so you mentioned about the spider and its web. Is that the way it weaves its web with like the multiple strands, is that unique to that spider alone, or do other spiders do that?
A lot of the web making is typical of spiders that are very similar to that. You do have the garden spider would be of the similar variety. Black widow, yeah, a little different. And you'll notice the black widow is a pretty lousy housekeeper. All right, that type is not. Others do spin webs. It's the one that gets the most famous, the beautiful garden spider variety of a web. In Costa Rica, it's amazing. It's the golden orb spider. All right, and it has an amazing web. Okay, it's well designed and but extremely strong. Okay, it's considered probably the strongest web. And if you make a, by the way, if you make a little rope out of that spider silk that's no bigger around than a pencil, and make a rope in a net, it'll stop a Boeing 747 in mid-flight. Okay? Yeah. So that web would do it. So, next question.
There's one back there.
Okay, go ahead. Plenty loud, please.
You were talking about the round stone balls.
Yes, the spheres.
Some are ancient. You didn't mention what kind of stone it's made of. How hard?
Oh, it's extremely hard. It's a kind of like basalt. It's a volcanic andesite, basically geologically for you geologists here, but it is extremely hard. It's not easy to chisel. Okay, it is not easy at all. And but when we think, well, we have steel hammers, they didn't have steel hammers back then. The interesting thing about it, they had jade. Jade is an extremely tough substance. And in fact, it's such a tough substance that in China, they made anvils from jade. Yeah, I remember hunting jade in the state of Wyoming years ago when I was young. And I remember finding a piece of jade, and there was like a 1 inch, it was inside of like a mine thing. It had a 1 inch piece and maybe 8 inches sticking out, and kind of about this big of a piece, and then coming down about 1 inch. And I remember we took a crack hammer to that, 3-pound crack hammer, and we had to beat and beat and beat on it until it finally broke that 1 inch section. So it's extremely strong, would make a wonderful hammer, by the way. Okay? Yeah.
Do you think that could have been money, that big sphere? Like in Truck Island, they have big spheres with holes in them that they use for money. And they just leave it there, but they tell who owns it. They change the ownership.
With Money? That's interesting. I don't think so because we don't see we don't see any potholes in these things. Some of them are very smooth, kind of like the best smoothness you can possibly get on a, if you're going to want to make a cue ball or a pool ball out of that, it's about as smooth as you can get, but it's not that smooth, but it's rounded. It's nicely rounded. I don't quite follow that, so
Yeah, I'm not familiar with those.
speaking of that.
Which one? This one. Oh, she's wondering if the big spheres that Dave was talking about could be like in the Truck Islands, you said? That they use some big spheres? Were they that big for money?
I never saw them. I have a plaque of
Okay, I don't know. I'm not familiar with those. I don't know how big they are, because some of these spheres are huge.
Well, you saw
And-
the picture of Allen, and
Yeah,
that's one 8-foot diameter.
no.
just changed the ownership.
Yeah, nobody really knows what they were for. It's all, there's a lot of speculations, but nobody really knows what these were made for. The point we wanted to make with them is they're not beyond the capability of ancient man to produce, that they are, when people say, oh, it took aliens to produce them, no, it didn't.
And ancient man on Earth was very smart. Okay, your question.
We were on vacation over in North Dakota recently in Teddy Roosevelt National Park, and we saw these big round stones.
Were they perfectly round? You said you were on vacation in, I have that one too. You were on vacation basically in North Carolina. You saw these big round
North Dakota.
stones. Or North Dakota.
Yeah, Teddy
And-
Roosevelt National Park.
Okay.
Well, that's interesting. I'll have to look into that.
They were, it was just like a cliff, and they'd be sticking in the,
Oh, like concretions. That would be a different sort of thing than these volcanic spheres that you see in Costa Rica. Those would be, in North Dakota, would likely be, I'm going to guess, sandstone concretions, which basically are rounded, but they're not perfectly spherical like these stones are in Costa Rica. One more minute, one more question. Right there.
The blue morpho butterfly is clear on top, but then there's the pattern underneath. Is that what you said?
Yes, it's clear, and the only reason it looks blue is because of the constructive interference in the light amplification of the blue spectrum.
The
Okay?
scales, right?
It's in the scales. It's actually, there are many, many laminae on each of thousands of scales. It's the laminae that actually does the, you might say, reflection and the enhancing the amount of light. An airline pilot, by the way, from 30,000 feet up can see one or a few of those from 30,000 feet up. It's better if there's a bunch, but if you really look, you could actually pick out one, even from a higher altitude. Because they're so bright. So,
Are there other butterflies that have that type of?
if there are, I don't know that. Okay, and I know a lot of other butterflies have iridescence, which is very similar. Okay, so iridescence will be somewhat like that. So look for butterflies that will be iridescent, and likely it'll be something like that. Okay.
Yeah, and Bill is starting to look at beetles now, and looking at the beautiful shiny coats on beetles, and see if there's some of that. Bill's really interested in that. If you want to see Bill Browning, if you want to see his original article, just go onto our website, Think and Believe, and you'll be able to look up the blue morpho butterfly.
And search blue morpho. Okay.
By the
That'll
way,
take you
our
to it.
website, by the way, if you want to get onto discovercreation.org, if you have a question, just go into the search, and if you don't find it on our website, if you go to the advanced search, it will take you to 6 other young age creation sites. Kind of avoid the massive stuff when you go to Google or something. And so it's just a service we provide that way, to go to other sites.
we're one of the few organizations that link to a whole bunch of other sites that are not our own, okay? But we think it's important. Well, thank you so much. God bless you guys. We'll see you next time.